And we want to get right to what is a deeply personal story for us. Nancy Guthrie, Savannah's beloved mother, has been reported missing in Arizona.
Nancy, who is 84, was last seen Saturday night and reported missing on Sunday by family members.
Savannah saying in a statement, on behalf of our family, I want to thank everyone for the thoughts, prayers, and messages of support. Right now, our focus remains on the safe return of our dear mom. We thank law enforcement for their hard work on this case and encourage anyone with information to contact the Pima County Sheriff's Department at 520-351-4900.
In a news conference late last night, the Pima County Sheriff said multiple teams responded to the scene.
This is very concerning to us. We don't typically get the sheriff out at a scene like this, but it's very concerning what we're learning from the house.
The sheriff adding that Nancy Guthrie has no signs of cognitive issues.
She's has no cognitive issues at all. She's very alert, very of good sound mind. Just some physical, 84 years old.
NBC's Tom Winter covers crime and security. Tom joins us now with the latest. Tom, good morning. The sheriff said that what they found especially concerning was the scene at the house. What's the significance of that?
That's right, Craig. And obviously our thoughts and prayers are out with our colleague Savannah this morning. You know, people go missing all the time in this country, and it can be a frustrating process for families as they ask law enforcement to look and intervene. One of the things that police do first is they go to somebody's house in a case like this. And according to what the sheriff said last night in Pima County, what they uncovered was a scene that was, quote, very concerning to them, but later used the phrase grave concern at the press conference last night. So it was the evidence that they found at Nancy Guthrie's house. She's 84 years old, that they found there that led them to this point where they thought that this is something that required their urgent attention. They were able to get out helicopters last night to use infrared cameras. They've got drones up. They've enlisted the help of the Customs and Border Protection, obviously not too far from the border there in Mexico. They have some special resources. The FBI is also aware of this case as well. Just given the nature of what they found at the scene, that's what's got them so concerned. We're withholding some details, as we would do with any investigation, to make sure that the investigation can go forward without us interfering in it.
And Tom, we think it's important to note once again, the sheriff also mentioned that she has no cognitive issues. I mean, she has some physical ailments that impact her movement, but what might that tell investigators?
Well, that's exactly right. And I think anytime we talk about somebody who's in their 80s or older, you know, we think about those cognitive issues. People can get confused. There can be mental health ailments as people get older. All of us have dealt with that in our lives with family members. And so you think about that, whether somebody got lost, whether they left their house and didn't quite know where they were going. That's not the case here, using the phrase very alert, very sound mind in the course of that press conference last night. And so this is somebody who they don't have those concerns about. There are some physical health concerns here as well. And I think that's another reason why investigators are focused on this. This is not somebody who would have perhaps the physical means to go very far from their house. They have not found this person in the course of the search and rescue. And at this point, they don't think that Savannah's mom had any sort of mental issues that would have led to her leaving her home.
Tom, what kind of questions and avenues will investigators explore moving forward now?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a two-pronged approach today. First is the search and rescue. I mean, we certainly hope, and obviously their hope is that they find Nancy okay, that she's going to be all right, and they're able to take care of her. And so that's the first thing, is the search and rescue component of that. Because of the foothills and the nature of Tucson, it's one of the things the sheriff talked about last night. They have a lot of experience doing these search and rescue missions. They have a volunteer search and rescue operation that's engaged with this as well. So that's the first concern. Can we find Nancy and find out where she is? The second concern is going to be what they found at the house and the evidence that they found there. And that's something that they're hoping can help give them some clues as to what might actually have happened, which of course could eventually lead them to Nancy. So that's going to be the second component of this investigation. I think that's why they're asking for the public's help. You know, we've seen in every major case, every time I've been on talking with you this year about some sort of whether authorities were trying to look for somebody, looking for clues, they rely on people to reach reach out with the videos that they have at their homes. Certainly, I'm sure they're looking for that video, but they want people to, in the Tucson area, to call in those tips, or if they have any video of anything suspicious in the area where Savannah's mom is located, that's something they're going to look for as well. Video is going to be critical. Is there a car? Are there individuals? Anybody suspicious? Anything out of the ordinary that they can use to start to track if there was anybody leaving that area, anybody leaving the scene, or where she may have gone. That would be hugely helpful as well. I mean, do they see her walking down the street, walking in somebody's backyard? All that would be so helpful.
All right. Tom, thank you. And again, to Tom's point, anyone with information is asked to call the Pima County Sheriff's Department, 520-351-4900. You can also use the website, 88crime.org, or you can call that number as well. That number's on your screen, 520-882-7463. And of course, we will be keeping you updated throughout the morning.
Sending our love, my friend.
Hey, thanks for watching. And don't forget, you can catch the Today Show every morning on NBC, or take Today when you're on the go. Just follow the Today podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen.
New urgency in the search for Savannah Guthrie's frail elderly mother, Nancy. Investigators seen towing a car from her residence after an all-out search of her home throughout the day. The FBI combing the house, agents on the roof examining security cameras, other agents going door to door in the neighborhood after a Tucson television station received a new message about Nancy Guthrie. The station said it contains something the senders seem to think will prove to investigators they're the same people who sent the first note. The one that mentioned Nancy Guthrie's Apple Watch and possible damage at her home, demanded Bitcoin, and included 2 deadlines. The first has come and gone. The second is in just 2 days. The FBI and Pima County Sheriff's Department said investigators are actively inspecting the information provided in the message for its authenticity. The message arrived after Savannah's brother Cameron pleaded for direct communication with anyone who might be holding his mother.
Whoever is out there holding our mother, we want to hear from you. We haven't heard anything directly. We need you to reach out, and we need a way to communicate with you so we can move forward. But first, we have to know that you have our mom. We want to talk to you, and we are waiting for contact.
Investigators have said there is so far no proof Nancy Guthrie, who is 84 and relies on daily medication and a pacemaker, is alive, despite appeals from her children.
Our mom is our heart and our home. She's 84 years old. Her health, her heart is fragile. She lives in constant pain. She is without any medicine. She needs it to survive. She needs it not to suffer.
As the investigation stretches into a week, the sheriff told us he is holding on to hope that Nancy Guthrie is still alive.
That is a devastated family who is doing all they can to just get their mom back. My message to you, if you're holding her, listen to the family. Let go of mom. No questions asked. Call us. Just get her home.
The sheriff told us that investigators have now finished talking to people who worked around the house here. Overnight, we heard from President Trump, who sounded optimistic, Gio. He said that we might hear something, maybe get some answers fairly soon, although, Gio, he did not get specific, and the president did not elaborate. Gio.
Oh, it is all so devastating, and our thoughts, of course, are with Savannah and the Guthrie family. Aaron, thank you so much. Joining us now is ABC News contributor and former FBI agent Brad Garrett. Brad, thank you so much for joining us here. So what do you make of the latest developments here? The FBI going door to door in the neighborhood and that latest message?
So a couple of things strike me, Gio, that we still don't know how the bad guys got into the house and out of the house. They've expanded the search around the house. They may be interested in the topography from her house to other directions. Did they walk basically into the house, had a car parked someplace else out of view, and take her to that car or van or whatever it might be? The other aspect about going back in the house, if the ransom note talks about specific things in the house, like things broken, things moved, cameras removed or smashed, whatever it might be, if that's the case, they're going to go back and double check they've got to see if it matches what the bad guys are telling them.
And Brad, with focusing on those reported ransom notes. One deadline passed Thursday, another deadline comes Monday. What does the past Thursday deadline tell investigators?
Well, I think it tells you a couple things. They're giving the family, I guess, an option of, we're going to extend this. What's fascinating, and again, I don't know if this is true, it's been reported that there is no way through the note that the law enforcement or the family can communicate with the bad guys. They have a dollar amount set. I think they may supposedly talk about consequences if it's not paid. I wouldn't be surprised if there is not a proof of life. And they're going to bet that they'll pay, and she'll either be released or not released, but it certainly leaves all the power with the bad guys.
Brad, how common or even uncommon is it to hear from the kidnappers once a ransom note is actually sent?
Well, I'll tell you, in the past, Gio, it's fairly common that you hear from the kidnappers because they may show you proof of life, and there may be a money exchange. They may want to drop. They may want money sent. In this case, I think it's Bitcoin's crypto, so they'd have to give an address for that. But I'm just suggesting that this is a whole different sort of way to basically do a kidnapping, and we're going to see on Monday how it plays out.
So, Brad, in the meantime, as we wait till Monday, what's the next step for investigators here?
So you have two things. You're going to have IP addresses. Apparently, again, I don't know if this is accurate. There's maybe two different IP addresses, but they may have used the same techniques to cloak or camouflage or make it extremely difficult to figure out the locality. I think the Bitcoin addresses, you have to have the ability, obviously, to send this cryptocurrency, is different in maybe each letter. So all of those things show to me some sophistication. It sounds like this group of people that committed this crime are well organized.
Well organized, certainly seem to be, but just a devastating story. Thank you so much for being with us this morning, Brad. We appreciate you.
We continue following the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie. The search for the mother of today's show host, Savannah Guthrie, now enters its 7th day. The Sheriff's Department started blocking off the area around her home yesterday. The FBI is reviewing a new ransom note, presumably by the kidnappers, and that new note was sent to KOLD TV in Tucson. Now, although the content of that note has not been released, it appears to be in response to the family's plea for communication. It comes just one day after the first of 2 deadlines passed in an alleged ransom note tied to the disappearance. We're told the new message contains information the senders seem to think will prove that they are the same people who sent that first note. Retired FBI agent Ken Gray explains what agents could be looking for to determine its authenticity.
We don't know if it is actually from the kidnapper or not, just as we don't know whether the first message was from the kidnapper or not. You're looking for details that only the kidnapper would know to show that they have personal knowledge. If you have somebody that is using information that they've gotten off the news, then that person could easily disguise themselves as the kidnapper.
Yesterday, we saw a tow truck pull through the neighborhood, towing away what appeared to be a blue SUV from Nancy's home, and we saw a similar car parked in the garage of her home earlier. New details on that note sent to TMZ. The message claims Nancy Guthrie is safe but scared, and claims Nancy is aware of her kidnapper's demands, which reportedly includes millions of dollars in Bitcoin. According to TMZ, that note includes information about her home that has never been made public. TMZ founder Harvey Levin says language inside that message makes him believe whoever wrote it, and possibly Nancy, are somewhere within the driving distance of Tucson, but law enforcement stresses they still cannot confirm the note is legitimate. And the FBI is still offering a $50,000 reward for information leading to the recovery of Nancy and or the arrest of anyone involved in her disappearance.
The search for today's show host Savannah Guthrie's missing mother now enters its 7th day. Arizona investigators are verifying a new letter thought to be connected with Nancy Guthrie's disappearance as a second deadline from an unverified ransom note looms. ABC's Johnny Fernandez reports.
Friday, the Pima County Sheriff's Department said they were inspecting a message sent to a local Tucson media outlet. The Pima County Sheriff's Department says it is aware of a newly received message connected to Nancy Guthrie. Sources telling ABC News that the note was sent to a Tucson media outlet. Sources say it is being taken seriously by law enforcement. Investigators are working to verify the message's authenticity, and while it is unclear what is in the message, investigators move quickly, arriving at Nancy Guthrie's home shortly after the development. This comes as the search enters its 7th day, and there has been no indication that Guthrie is alive, despite emotional pleas from her children.
Our mom is our heart and our home. She is 84 years old. Her health, her heart is fragile.
Investigators say one of 2 deadlines in an unverified ransom note sent to news organizations came and went. The next deadline in that letter is quickly approaching.
And if a transfer wasn't made, then I think a second demand was for next Monday.
In Tucson, FBI hostage negotiators are standing by in case they're needed. For now, teams continue looking for evidence, and her neighbors wait for word.
Just don't want to imagine what happened that night and what she might have felt at that moment.
On Friday, multiple agencies, including the Border Patrol, looked for Nancy Guthrie. The Sheriff's Department says it has no indication she was taken into Mexico, but investigators don't know her whereabouts. Johnny Fernandez, ABC News, New York.
I will say the letter begins by saying she is safe but scared. And they go on to say she knows exactly what the demand is.
New shocking details have been revealed about the purported Nancy Guthrie ransom note by TMZ boss Harvey Levin, which was sent to the outlet 2 days after Savannah Guthrie's mom was reported missing. Levin told Fox News' Sean Hannity that the note highlighted insider details about her suspected abduction, including information about her Apple Watch and a damaged floodlight at her $1 million home. Days earlier, TMZ reported that the note provided a deadline for the ransom payment in Bitcoin for her safe return, and implied something sinister would befall Nancy if the towering sum wasn't paid. It isn't clear if the purported note sent to TMZ was the same as the ones received by local Arizona affiliates. One Arizona news anchor who saw the possible Nancy Guthrie ransom note told CNN it was clear after a couple of sentences that it might not be a hoax.
A lot of it is information that only someone who is holding her for ransom would know. Some very sensitive information and things that people who weren't there when she was taken captive would know.
Mary Coleman, an anchor for Arizona-based CNN affiliate KOLD 13 News, also revealed that the note had come via email and that police were searching for an IP address. This comes after Today host Savannah Guthrie and her siblings Annie and Cameron made a tearful appeal for their mother's safe return via Instagram on the evening of February 4th.
We are ready to talk. We need to know, without a doubt, that she is alive and that you have her. We want to hear from you, and we are ready to listen.
A purported ransom note was also sent to a local Arizona CBS affiliate, which contained details about the 84-year-old matriarch's home near Tucson and what she was wearing on the night of her disappearance. Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos told CBS News, although he declined to give any specifics. In a February 5th press conference, authorities revealed that there were still no suspects in the case, and that the drops of blood outside the home, visible in scene footage from News Nation, had belonged to Nancy.
Blood on the porch, that was one we did. It came back to Nancy.
The FBI also revealed that some of the notes had included a demand for money with a 5 p.m. February 5th deadline, as well as a second deadline for Monday, February 9th if the first wasn't met. According to authorities, a relative made a 911 call around noon on February 1st to report Nancy Guthrie was missing after she failed to show up for a church service. She was last seen by Savannah's brother-in-law, Tommaso, after he dropped Nancy off at her home in Catalina Foothills, north of Tucson, at around 9:30 p.m. on January 31st after a dinner, authorities said. In the early hours of the following morning, at 1:47 a.m., Nancy's doorbell camera disconnects and is later discovered to have gone missing. At 2:12 a.m., a camera at the home detects movement, But unfortunately, the footage overrode itself because Nancy didn't pay for the subscription service. On February 3rd, FBI agents were spotted at Tommaso and Savannah Guthrie's sister Annie's home in Arizona as the search for their missing mother continues. Savannah was also believed to have been there. The elder Guthrie was not known to have illnesses such as dementia or Alzheimer's and was of good sound mind. However, she was described as being in not of good physical health. She cannot walk more than 50 yards on her own and is reliant on life-saving medication, a lack of which for 24 hours could prove fatal, making the hunt a race against time. Today host Savannah Guthrie, who has been with NBC News for nearly 2 decades, has been absent from her morning talk show since Nancy's disappearance, and called off her trip to Italy to cover the Winter Olympics as authorities scramble to search for her mother. Nancy has made various guest appearances on Today over the years since Savannah joined the show in 2011.
She loves us, her family, fiercely, and her selflessness and sacrifice for us, her steadfastness and her unmovable confidence is the reason any of us grew up to do anything.
There's a lot to unpack in this case today. There's an updated police timeline of the night Nancy went missing, causing new questions. Details about that ransom note that the FBI has been investigating, and Savannah's brother Cameron pleading for proof that their mother is still alive.
Whoever is out there holding our mother, we want to hear from you. But first, we have to know that you have our mom.
Savannah posted her brother's message yesterday after 5 p.m. That's the exact time of the first deadline given on the ransom note.
And if a transfer wasn't made, then I think a second demand was for next Monday.
The family is saying, okay, let's touch them again because we've passed the first deadline, and let them know, to reassure them, guys, we want to talk. We will consider your offer. We'll pay. We want our mother back.
And we're learning startling new details about that note from those who have seen it firsthand. It reportedly claims that the 84-year-old is safe but scared.
Is the ask in the millions?
I don't want to say what the number is. It is a lot.
Identical emails were sent to 3 media organizations, including TMZ and CBS affiliate KOLD in Tucson. We spoke to both.
Yeah, Nichelle, I got to tell you, when we saw the note, this was the part to us that said this could be legit. There's a part in the note where they talk about 2 items in the house, Nancy's Apple Watch and also a floodlight in the backyard that had been destroyed. But it's not just the watch itself. They also included something about the location of that watch. If you weren't in the house, you wouldn't know that. And also the floodlight being destroyed was not something that had been reported.
The reason the details have been kind of kept tight is because if you put all this out there, then everybody starts writing letters with the same details, and then you start having to figure out, okay, which one's our original person. We've already had this happen where somebody has been a copycat.
Almost always it's somebody close. It's more than one very often because it's hard to do this as a single person. So in my estimation, a key component here would be a significant reward, because if 2 people or 3 people are involved, there's no secrets.
All this as the search for clues continues. Authorities were out yesterday going door to door in the neighborhood near the home of Savannah's sister Annie. Meanwhile, investigators have updated their official timeline with new details. 9:48 p.m., Nancy's son-in-law drops her off at home. 2 minutes later, her garage door closes at 9:50 p.m. At 1:47 a.m., this doorbell camera is disconnected, and about 25 minutes later at 2:12 a.m., software detects something on a camera, but investigators revealed a key detail. There is apparently no home video available.
In this case, it looks like the subscription had expired. Even though they didn't get video, apparently the camera could capture movement. Then they can pinpoint the time that she's abducted and literally taken out of the house about 41 minutes later, because that's when her pacemaker disconnects from the app on her phone and her watch. So the question becomes, what were the perpetrators doing in the house for 41 minutes? That's a long time at a crime scene.
And this is interesting. There's online speculation about this part of Savannah's plea and how it parallels a moment in the movie The Silence of the Lambs.
She is full of kindness and knowledge.
Catherine is very gentle and kind.
Talk to her and you'll see.
Talk to her and you'll see.
Is that just a coincidence in your opinion?
No, I would suspect it's part of FBI tradecraft. And in the Silence of the Lambs, the main character in that movie is an FBI agent. And the FBI does this kind of things. They can consult on films and stuff like that. But what they're trying to do is to humanize the victim here to the perpetrators.
This whole thing's breaking my heart.
This morning, Hoda Kotb returned to Studio 1A as the Olympics opening ceremony gets underway in Milan. Stepping in for Savannah there, veteran sports commentator Mary Carrillo. Craig Melvin also staying stateside as the entire Today family show support for Savannah.
Everybody's hoping and praying for Nancy's safe return.
First at 6:30 as the search intensifies for the 84-year-old mother of Today's Show host Savannah Guthrie. An unnamed law enforcement source claims a family member is now a prime suspect in her disappearance. KTLA's Mary Beth McDade live in the newsroom with the latest on a rapidly developing story tonight, MB.
Micah, Savannah Guthrie and her sister Annie, alongside their brother, have broken their silence tonight. They posted this video message to their mother and her potential kidnappers.
Mama, if you're listening, we need you to come home. We miss you.
Our mom is our heart and our home. She's 84 years old. Her health, her heart is fragile. She lives in constant pain. She is without any medicine. She needs it to survive. She needs it not to suffer. We too have heard the reports about a ransom letter in the media. As a family, we are doing everything that we can. We are ready to talk.
While the search for Nancy continues tonight, there are conflicting reports over whether her son-in-law is a person of interest in her disappearance. Now, just a short time ago, there was a flurry of police and FBI activity at Nancy's Tucson home. It appears they collected some evidence, and now many have left. There are blood drops on the doorstep of Nancy Guthrie's Tucson home, and the Pima County Sheriff says there are obvious signs of a break-in. He believes the 84-year-old mother of Today's Show anchor Savannah Guthrie was taken from her home against her will in a possible kidnapping. Deputies were seen searching an area behind Nancy's home today. Nancy was last seen Saturday night by her daughter Annie and her son-in-law, who dropped her off at home after dinner. Her family reported her missing when she didn't show up the next day for Sunday church services. Journalist Ashley Banfield is revealing that authorities are looking at a possible person of interest.
Critical line from this high-level law enforcement source was that the son-in-law may be prime suspect at this time.
She's talking about Annie's husband, one of the last people to see Nancy alive.
I was also told that the car belonging to Annie Guthrie, that's Savannah's sister, Nancy Guthrie's daughter, had been towed and taken into evidence.
Ashley says sources have also told her about what happened to the home's Nest cameras.
There were Nest cameras, plural, and they were smashed, and that they'd been taken into evidence.
The Pima County Sheriff denies those claims that they have a suspect, saying in a statement, "At this point, investigators have not identified a suspect or person of interest in this case." Detectives are reportedly looking into whether a trespasser seen lurking in a neighbor's yard near Nancy's home a few weeks ago is linked to her disappearance. They're also looking into a digital footprint to see whose phones were in the area at the time Nancy vanished, and waiting for DNA results. 2 ransom notes that were sent to TMZ and a local Arizona TV station asking for millions of Bitcoin are also part of this investigation. Meantime, the sheriff gave a new interview to the Today Show this morning.
We have nothing else to go on but the belief that she is here. She's present, she's alive, and we want to save her.
President Donald Trump released a statement on Truth Social just moments ago saying, "I spoke with Savannah Guthrie and let her know that I am directing all federal law enforcement to be at the families and local law enforcement's complete disposal immediately. We are deploying all resources to get her mother home safely. The prayers of our nation are with her and her family." For now, reporting live here in the newsroom, Mary Beth McDade. We'll send it back to you in the studio, Micah.
Mary Beth, thank you.
And as we continue to cover this story, Fox News shared this just last night, saying investigators towed a vehicle from Nancy Guthrie's property just last night. Earlier, FBI agents were seen inside the home's garage where a blue SUV was parked. Now, we also heard from President Trump as he spoke aboard Air Force One just yesterday. And here's a quote from Trump saying, "We have some clues, I think, that are very strong, and I think we could have some answers coming up fairly soon. I'm not talking about a search. I'm talking about a solution. A lot has taken place in the last couple of hours." A few more social media posts we wanted to share with you here, and these are the latest posts from the Pima County Sheriff's Office last night showing they're investigating that new message regarding Guthrie. And they also shared this map that we're putting up on your screen saying investigators are conducting follow-up at the Guthrie home and in surrounding areas. The roadway in front of that home currently restricted to provide investigator space. A lot to discuss here, so we want to bring in Dante Mills. He is a federal defense attorney at Mills Legal, LLC. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us this morning. We do appreciate it.
Chrissy, thank you for having me.
So there's a lot of questions here, as we continue to watch all of this unfold. From a legal standpoint, what questions do you still have at this moment that you want answered?
What an interesting case. There are a lot of questions. So what we really have to focus on is the person communicating through these letters that they're sending to media outlets, are they really the person who did the kidnapping? That's the most important question you want to try to verify. It's interesting because the family is using the media also to communicate with them because there is no direct line of communication. So you see them putting out statements, putting out videos and reading statements so they can communicate with the capture and let them know they're willing to engage in conversation. They just need to make sure that their mother is still alive and that they're obviously willing then to meet the demands of these captures. It should be noted, though, that this is a very serious criminal offense. Obviously, when you talk about kidnapping, but it's even more serious if you talk about murder. So I think that the kidnappers hopefully understand that it's better for them to release Ms. Guthrie alive so that even if they're caught, there's a possibility that they won't face murder charges, just kidnapping charges, which will be less. And also, lastly, for anyone that's sending out notes or ransom notes who are just trying to capitalize on this tragic event and they don't, in fact, have Ms. Guthrie, they should be aware that there's criminal charges associated with that as well. Even if they didn't do the kidnapping, it's extortion to put out a letter making a demand for something, even if you don't have what you're saying you have in return.
Right. And federal prosecutors did charge a California man with sending a fake ransom note in an effort to extort Savannah Guthrie and her siblings. So we do know that was Derek Calleja, and he's accused of demanding a ransom across state lines and using anonymous telecommunications to abuse, threaten, or harass the Guthrie family. But my question for you, how do ransom notes sent to media outlets factor into a potential criminal case compared to notes that are sent privately to a family? What's the distinction there?
Yeah, so the slight distinction could be that it could make it a federal crime when you talk about sending something across state lines, when you put it out into the public. If it's something that occurs within one state, generally it would be a state crime and the state would have the authority and the ability to investigate that and charge. When you make it a federal crime, it does open up more resources because the federal government is going to have more resources in a state. So when you communicate across state lines or send those letters across state lines, where you just talked about the charges that they've put on the one person that they knew the letter was fake, you are increasing the chances, in fact, that you're going to get caught because now there's more resources to put to this investigation. The charges are not more severe because they're severe charges in state court, but in federal court, you're just talking about the mass unit of the federal government behind this investigation.
Now, Dante, I did want to switch the post here that is on the screen back to this statement from President Trump, because he's saying we have some clues that he thinks are very strong, could have some answers there soon. Now, we also did see earlier that President Trump offered federal support. This is a high-profile case. A lot of the nation is keeping a close eye on this. We're having President Trump offering his support there. Once investigators find this person they believe is responsible for this alleged abduction, how quickly could we see charges and then a trial? And I guess a two-part question for you here is, could that impact how quickly we see this move along, seeing that this is so high-profile, seeing President Trump weighing in on all of this?
Yes, there had to be an expectation from these kidnappers that this would turn into a high profile matter just because of who the family is. But I don't know if they believe that it would make it to this level where you have the president of the United States weighing in and fully pledging his support. That has to put them on edge and make them nervous because the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, is the best investigators in the world. And if they slipped up at all, nobody does anything perfectly. One slip up, if you have the FBI and the full president's support looking into that investigation, that could lead them to you. So I know it makes them much more nervous. Now, one thing that we should mention is there's a lot of people that's been missing over the years. And some people are saying, why is this such a high profile case? Well, when you have people in the public, you want those crimes to be investigated and you want them to be solved because you don't want the public to believe that, man, no matter what, even if it's a high profile person, they can't solve these crimes. So I have no chance if something happens to me. That's why it's important for these crimes to be solved because they're in the public, because they're in the limelight. And you want the American people to have that trust in our system that if we investigate, we can get answers. That calms everybody down and makes everybody feel safe. So I hope that this ends in the right way where she's able to come home safe. They can find the captures, charge them, and convict them of the crimes they committed.
Now, what legal thresholds must investigators really meet there, though, before escalating searches or securing new warrants tied to these ransom notes that we have been seeing?
Yeah, so it's going to be tricky because they don't want to jump the gun, especially when the goal is to have Nancy Guthrie home alive. And what they don't want to do is jump the gun and even spook the people who have them into trying to, get away. So maybe they take her life because they don't think they can have an exchange where they can get away with it. So the investigators have to be careful. They want to follow every lead, which they're doing. Apparently, they got another note last night that led to more investigation. They went back to the house. We know that they took a vehicle from the home. Maybe the note included something that they may have left in the vehicle or something like that as proof that they're the ones who, in fact, committed this crime and that they had Nancy Guthrie. But the investigators want to follow leads, but not go too fast or jump the gun and scare the captures away or make it seem like there's a situation where they can't win. So they don't worry about getting her home safe and they just worry about protecting themselves.
And the family is still looking for proof of life there. But what challenges could that lead to if charges are eventually filed?
Well, I don't know if proof of life comes, that's a beneficial and positive thing. I don't know if that would complicate anything if charges do come. It gives another avenue of proof that if something comes from these captures and the fact the captures are the people who took Miss Nancy Guthrie, if they are captured, if they did some kind of video of proof of life, that's just another piece of evidence or proof that can be used to show that they are the ones that are behind this. That's why they may be a little apprehensive to do that because they know that any contact that they have, anything else that they give, there's going to be clues that come from it, whether it's location or whatever it is. There's clues that are going to come from any additional information that these captures give to the authorities. So I'm sure they're hesitant, but I don't know if that will be a negative thing in any way for the investigation or if they're charged for the criminal case, because it's just more information and more ammunition to show that they were in fact the ones that committed the crime.
Now, another just question for you that I had, when ransom demands involve Bitcoin, how does that really affect the legal strategy on both sides, or does that really not have any impact?
It absolutely has impact because when you have criminal charges, when you're charging someone, it may seem obvious. Oh, we know that they did this. We know that they were the ones who, kidnapped Ms. Guthrie. But you still have to walk through specific evidence. And when you talk about a kidnapping or a bribery or an exchange or ransom, you want to be able to trace the money and say, we know where the money went and it ended up with them. Bitcoin really complicates it because it's really hard to trace. I've had a lot of cases that involve Bitcoin. Once it hits that system, it can be bounced around and moved to different accounts. And it's really hard to follow. You can see maybe even what account it goes to another account number. But
that you think we should be discussing here that the viewers should know?
No, I think that the coverage here has been beneficial. I think it's really important for the families to get the word out there, to have a way to communicate with the captures, and they're doing that via the media. And I think it's a positive. I think the way that America is kind of galvanizing behind this and saying, no matter who it is, if someone is kidnapped or if someone is taken, we need to be behind them and move these investigations forward. I think that's good overall for the safety of our country and for us coming together. We just hope that this ends well, that she's able to come home safe. Whether or not a ransom is paid and they get away with taking the ransom, the number one priority is her coming home safe, and then the investigation and capturing them and charging them and hopefully convicting them thereafter.
Absolutely. And Dante, thank you so much for joining us this morning. As we continue to watch this, I'm sure we'll have you back. So thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good morning.
I'm Vinny Politan. The subject of my investigation is the abduction of Savannah Guthrie's mother, Nancy. Who would take an 84-year-old widow from her home in the middle of the night? Here's the story. When 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie didn't show up for church on Sunday morning, her family's concern turned into a full-blown criminal investigation. The mother of today's show host, Savannah Guthrie, was last seen around 9:45 p.m. Saturday at her home in the Catalina foothills north of Tucson, Arizona, and was later reported missing after relatives found no trace of her inside. Investigators quickly declared her residence a crime scene, saying evidence indicated she did not leave voluntarily and was likely taken against her will, possibly from her bed in the middle of the night. Forensics teams found blood matching Nancy's DNA on her front porch. Security cameras and her pacemaker app were disabled around the time she vanished. And at least one ransom note with specific details has been examined by police. The FBI has joined the search and is offering a $50,000 reward for information leading to her safe return or an arrest. But as of now, no suspects or persons of interest have been publicly identified. Savannah and her siblings have made emotional public pleas for their mother's safe return, emphasizing her fragile health and urgent need for daily medication. This is the true crime mystery that everyone is talking about, and everyone's trying to figure out. You go online, you see it, everyone's got a theory on, could be this, could be that. But what we're hearing from law enforcement is they don't have any suspects yet. Let's bring in Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas, who is live at the Pima County Sheriff's Department headquarters. Cody, what's the latest from the family tonight?
Well, yeah, Vinny, I've been to both the crime scene at Nancy Guthrie's house and the home of her daughter, Annie, which is only about 10 minutes away. No real movement at either. Now, of course, when I was at both locations, you saw cars in the driveway of each home. Unclear if those cars belonged to who lived inside each of those homes or if it was investigative personnel. We know the investigation is continuing to play itself out, and we know the home of Nancy Guthrie has been turned back over to the family, even though investigative work is still being done at that scene, Vinny. But of course, we have all seen that emotional video that Savannah Guthrie posted alongside her siblings to her Instagram page, pleading for her mother to come home. Let's take a look at a portion of that video now.
On behalf of our family, we want to thank all of you for the prayers for our beloved mom, Nancy. We feel them, and we continue to believe that she feels them too. Our mom is a kind, faithful, loyal, fiercely loving woman of goodness and light. She's funny and spunky and clever. She has grandchildren that adore her and crowd around her and cover her with kisses. She loves fun and adventure. She is a devoted friend. She is full of kindness and knowledge. Talk to her and you'll see. Our mom is our heart and our home. She is 84 years old. Her health, her heart is fragile. She lives in constant pain. She is without any medicine. She needs it to survive. She needs it not to suffer. Mommy, if you are hearing this, You are a strong woman. You are God's precious daughter, Nancy. We believe and know that even in this valley, He is with you. Everyone is looking for you, Mommy, everywhere. We will not rest. Your children will not rest until we are together again.
And Vinny, during a recent press conference, the sheriff spoke on who potential suspects could be and how no one has been ruled out just yet. Take a listen.
Nobody's eliminated, but we just really don't have enough to say, this is our suspect, this is our guy, we know, or our gal. We just don't know that. And it's really kind of reckless to report that someone is a suspect when they could very well be a victim. It just, I bring to you, to the media, I plead with you to be careful of what it is we put out there, because we don't have anybody here listed as a suspect.
No, Vinny, of course we saw those headlines swirling around social media pointing towards Nancy's son-in-law, Tommaso, who's married to her daughter, Annie, as a, quote, prime suspect. But the sheriff doubled down again on the fact that they have not identified a suspect or a person or persons of interest.
All right, Cody Thomas is going to stick with us throughout the hour. This brings us to the first question in our investigation. I think it's an important one at this stage of the investigation, which is, what is the relationship between law enforcement and the family? Because on the one hand, no one has been eliminated, which would include potentially family members, yet they are also the victims, as the sheriff was talking about. So how does that relationship navigated at this stage of everything? Joining me, missing persons private investigator, search and rescue pilot, and ground search technician Steve Fisher is with us, and retired police detective, forensic educator, Dr. Mike McCutcheon. Dr. Mike McCutcheon, I want to begin with you from that law enforcement perspective. How do you navigate that relationship in terms of what you tell them, what you don't tell them, how you deal with them if, in fact, no one has been eliminated, no one's been so-called cleared?
Well, it's a good question, because the relationship that they're going to have with law enforcement right now is going to be very close. When they made their video, I'm sure that they had some interaction with the police on what they should and shouldn't say, because it's still an active investigation and they don't want the family inadvertently to release any information that they don't want released. So there's going to be a victim advocate of some sort that is going to work with the family, that is going to be the liaison with the police while they're working the investigation. If it comes out that a family member or someone that they know is a suspect, they certainly wouldn't share that there with the family. They're going to follow the information. They're going to follow the what the data shows them and what the evidence shows them. And if they come up that it's going to be someone that they know, or if it's a family member, they will reveal that at some point. But they wouldn't tip their hat through the investigation until they had something concrete. Just like you said, you're not going to want to throw out those accusations early on if you don't have anything to substantiate it. So right now, I think the relationship would be very close, but they're not going to be sharing information if they thought it was a family member at this point.
Steve, from all your experience, what are your thoughts here about how that relationship works between the family and law enforcement in a case where no one has been eliminated as a suspect?
Yeah, it's a super tricky situation, and I agree with everything that the other guest said. Here we got a situation where there's possibly, a ransom, and in that case, you got, family members are probably going to want to get this thing moving as quick as possible, get that conversation started, and they may even want to pay it. But you're going to have investigators that certainly would like to open that dialogue if there's somebody there to speak with, but are going to want to also slow down the situation at that point, control it as much as they can, rein and have that tactical advantage. And they really have separate agendas then, where the family really is going to be pushing to get her back right now. I don't care what it takes versus, law enforcement. Listen, whatever the relationship is, they both need each other greatly right now until there's more clarity on if this is a ransom or if there's some other type of suspect.
Yeah, and Dr. Mike McCutcheon, Steve brings up a great point, which is the outcomes for each side. Law enforcement wants, obviously, her returned safely, if possible. They also want to catch the people responsible. They want to prosecute the people responsible. And as a family member, I'm sure they want that, but for them, it's really just about one thing, getting her home safely. Do you see any sort of a conflict that could occur between those two ultimate goals?
I think it's possible, but it's not quite like in the movie where the law enforcement is going to want her to get back just as much as the family does. That is our goal as law enforcement, is to bring her home. Now, yes, we want to find perpetrators and charge them with a crime, but we wouldn't sacrifice her safety to return her in order to find a suspect. So this is where the investigators have to be clever, and they have to be able to navigate both. They want her safe return. If they're going to pay a ransom, they're going to have some type of system to make sure they're not just leaving this money for somebody to get and then that's it. There's going to be a lot of coordination if there's an exchange, and then the police are going to try to still catch who's responsible while returning her. So I don't think it's one or the other. It's the wrong way to think about it. We can have both things true at the same time. We want her safe return, and we want to have the prosecution. You're not going to sacrifice one for the other.
Steve Fisher, do you think it's possible for investigators to track her down before this so-called Monday deadline, if in fact this ransom note is legitimate and they're going to carry out the threats that were in that note?
Yeah, I do think there's a good chance that, the FBI, cell team that's in there they're fantastic, doesn't, in this type of situation, there's a very good chance that, somebody, went by that house in the days before, seeing, and scoped it out, and they can tell from that cell tower dump that they'll get, if those phones were new to that area, if they had traversed in that area before, or if they just started in the last few days, and they'll probably be able to narrow down a bucket of, IMEI, numbers that they can, look into. They might be able to, they get somebody, get a lead from that. But they've got the best of the best in there right now, working digital forensics and everything for sure.
Yeah, they do. And there's a bright spotlight on the investigation, which I think helps. I mean, it brings more resources and is a motivating factor. Not that they're always motivated, but they don't always have the resources to do it. Steve Fisher, always great to see you. Thanks so much. Dr. Mike McCutcheon is going to stick around for a moment. Coming up next, is there any way this wasn't targeted?
We love you, Mom.
Love you, Mom.
We love you, Mom. Stay strong.
We love you.
Disappearance of Nancy Guthrie.
Here on the ground in Tucson, there have been thousands of leads.
Everyone is looking for you, Mommy.
Where is Nancy Guthrie? A Court TV and Scripps News special report. Friday night at 8/7 Central on Court TV.
A deadly school shooting.
I just started hearing gunshots.
Now, the father of the alleged shooter
is on trial.
Mr. Gray knowingly allowing his son to possess a weapon.
The Gave My Son a Gun murder trial next week on Court TV.
Central Units 582, to be referenced missing person under PTSD at 5820-5020, approximately Escalante. To be referenced Nancy, a white female, 84 years of age, 5'2" medium build, powder blue, fleeing after 2,200 hours as of yesterday. Nancy has high blood pressure, pacemaker, and cardiac issues. And then ACL 682.
The original dispatch audio that went out early on Sunday, just after noon, after the 911 call, was made by the family from the home of their mom, Nancy Guthrie. Let's go back to Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas. He's at the Pima County Sheriff's Department tonight. What is it like, right? I've seen a lot of these daytime photos, but what's it like in that neighborhood at night, Cody?
Well, Vinny, the short answer is that it's dark, and it's really dark and remote. And I went out there at night to get a better feel of what it might have looked like that night that Nancy Guthrie went missing. Take a look at this. Here now in the Catalina foothills area of Tucson, Arizona, the home you're looking at now belongs to missing 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie. And of course, you see the home is lit up. We see some people in the driveway. Unclear who those people are, but we do know there has been a strong investigative presence out here since Sunday afternoon, since Nancy Guthrie was reported missing. Now, I'll step out of frame here. You can see there's some activity going on here behind me. There's a good media presence here. It's well lit out here in front of this house. But the question is, how dark would it have been the night that Nancy Guthrie was taken? What would it have looked like out here in this remote neighborhood that has no streetlights that could be seen driving up to the house? What would it have looked like that night? Now, you're still looking in the direction of Nancy Guthrie's house, except now we've walked 20 to 25 yards in the opposite direction of the media presence, the opposite direction of the media lights, to really give you a feel of how dark it could get out here on this remote road. Now, of course, we have our own light set up, but as I continue walking in this direction, you can see it gets darker and darker and darker until you see absolutely nothing, not a thing. Now, one thing I can tell you about being out here on this remote road is that I have seen no street lights, no street cameras. Unclear if any of these homes around the area have Ring cameras on them. Even if they did, and even if there were street cameras, I imagine it'd be super hard to pick anything up out here in the dark hours of the night. And Vinny, the video you're looking at on your screen now is what it would have looked like driving up to Nancy's house in the Catalina foothills at night. It's a video I took when I was driving up there. And you can see, Vinny, even with my headlights on, you can see pretty much what's directly in front of me. But peripherally, you can see how dark that it gets. You know, this is off one of the main roads. It's not a typical subdivision. The houses are not juxtaposed like a normal neighborhood that you would see. You can't really see the fronts of any of those houses. Just a really, really dark area, Vinny, at night.
Yeah. It's darker than I thought it was. When you stepped off camera away from the lights, we saw absolutely nothing, Cody. All right, Cody's going to stick around. That brings us to the next question in our investigation. You've got this very specific neighborhood that is not, a typical neighborhood. You've got these big plots, acre of land. Is there any way this wasn't targeted, that the person going there didn't know exactly where they were going and exactly whose home they were going to? Let's bring in our guest. Joining me, former law enforcement and private investigator for over 40 years, Vinny Parco is with us, and still with me, retired detective Dr. Mike McCutcheon. All right, Vinny, great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. From your perspective, is there any way that this was not specifically targeted, that whoever went in that home and abducted Nancy Guthrie didn't know who they were taking?
No, that was targeted. They're definitely targeted. What I believe is that somebody, either a caretaker or somebody close to the family, might have given some information to perpetrators. And remember, most crimes are crimes of opportunity. They know that there's a very hard place to get caught because it's dark, there's no people around, there's no stores or any place where there's cameras. What I believe is that a caretaker or somebody close to the family might have said something or might have contributed information to somebody who's a bad person. It's very simple, and they know that the person is alone. They know that the area is very easy to get a person out of there without being seen. Now, the other thing that I worry about, remember, I was a forensic examiner. I worked for the State Board of Medicine. This woman is 84 years old. She's probably been traumatized by this whole thing. She's got her pacemaker is not connected. She doesn't have. I don't think she has a medication. So I really feel bad that I got a bad feeling about this. I really do, and I really believe that someone was opportunistic. They know that she's related to a celebrity who has a lot of money, who makes good money, and this is a person that can get ransom from. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, Dr. Mike, I can see that scenario. I think I've seen that movie, right? Where someone who is in there comes out and says, "You won't believe whose house I was at today." Right? Oh yeah, her daughter is like on, top of the food chain in news reporting. Like, it doesn't get any higher than where Savannah Guthrie is. And I could see someone like that putting 2 and 2 together. What are your thoughts about whether or not this was targeted, that whoever did this knew exactly whose house it was and knew the situation there?
They definitely knew exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. There's no way that they didn't know that what they were doing, and there's a few reasons why. For a random attack, if they just randomly picked a house to go commit a crime, commit a burglary, if they were committing some type of a murder or rape or something like that, then that would be random, and they would leave the person there. There'd be no reason to take a person with them because that's too high risk. Moving a person is high risk. So they had to go there with the intent that they are going to remove her for a ransom. That takes planning. Now we know that the evidence that they haven't shared all the evidence that they've recovered, but so far they haven't come out with anything that would focus the attention to a specific person. That to me, again, means that there's planning. It wasn't a crime of passion where somebody's randomly going by, commits a crime, and they don't have, I'll say, proper gear to not get caught. They were clearly took precautions to make sure that they didn't get caught. They knew where the camera was to disarm the camera before they went in. So they definitely had knowledge. There was some pre-planning here. This was definitely not something that a random person just walked in and said, "Hey, you know what? I think I recognize you, and now I'm going to ask for a ransom." Particularly in a ransom case like this, you have to know that the victims have the ability to pay a ransom. So there is absolutely no doubt in my mind that this was something that was pre-planned. There's no way that it was just a crime of passion or something similar.
All right, we have about a minute left, Vinny. Is it possible for one person to pull this off, or are we looking for more than one?
No, it has to be a group, at least 2 or 3 people. Someone driving the car, someone who knows about the area, knows how knows how she operates, how she compute, whatever she does. By the way, I think that the police, that they are doing a great job. They did everything that they're supposed to do on a case like this. They did a textbook thing. I believe that a caretaker or somebody that's close to the family said to somebody, "Hey, I got an opportunity for you to make money." And that's what they're doing.
All
that's
about
how
the
I
money.
think it's
All about the money. Hey, Vinny Parko, great to catch up with you. Great to see you again. Dr. Mike McCutcheon, always a pleasure. Still to come, is this ransom note legitimate? I'm Vinny Politan. We continue our investigation of the abduction of Nancy Guthrie, a case with a missing 84-year-old woman, blood stains outside the house, and a mysterious ransom note. Here's the story. In the quiet Catalina foothills community outside of Tucson, the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie has sharply jolted friends, family, and investigators alike. The 84-year-old mother of Today's Show anchor Savannah Guthrie was reported missing on February 1st after she didn't arrive at a planned Sunday church service, and relatives found her home in unusual disarray. The Pima County Sheriff said authorities believe Nancy was abducted from her home against her will, noting that she has limited mobility, requires daily medication, and would not have walked away on her own. Blood matching her DNA was discovered on the front steps, and investigators are analyzing possible ransom notes that reference specific details about her and her home, even as the legitimacy of those notes remains unconfirmed. Despite extensive efforts by local law enforcement and the FBI, including reviewing surveillance footage, license plate readers, and digital data, no suspect has been identified, and Nancy's whereabouts remain unknown. Savannah and her family, supported by national attention and a growing reward, continue to plead for her safe return. All right, let's go right out to Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas, who is live tonight at the Pima County Sheriff's Department headquarters. All right, Cody, what do we know about the ransom note, and are investigators taking it seriously?
Well, yeah, Vinny, they are taking it very seriously, and this is actually where the FBI and their myriad resources step in to help with this. Now, they say multiple ransom notes are floating around out here throughout social media, being sent to local news outlets as well as national news outlets. But in a press conference, they gave an update on the ransom note situation. Take a listen to this.
There have been, as far as we know, I think 3 ransom notes so far, 1 arrest. Are they all different? Or do you think there's different authors behind all of them? Or?
So the one that went to the media is the one we are currently investigating and working on. The imposter that I talked about, where an arrest was made early this morning, that there will be more information. We believe there's no evidence to connect this to Nancy's case. It was someone that was trying to profit from it, a total imposter.
So you heard it there, Vinny. They did arrest an imposter trying to take advantage of the Guthrie family's pain right now, but no relation to the official ransom note that they are really focusing on. Now, Vinny, also, Savannah Guthrie and her brother Cameron have posted videos online trying to get contact with the possible kidnapper or kidnappers in a plea to get their mother home. Take a listen to both of them.
We too have heard the reports about a ransom letter in the media. As a family, we are doing everything that we can. We are ready to talk. However, we live in a world where voices and images are easily manipulated. We need to know, without a doubt, that she is alive and that you have her. We want to hear from you, and we are ready to listen. Please reach out to us.
This is Cameron Guthrie. I'm speaking for the Guthrie family. Whoever is out there holding our mother, we want to hear from you. We haven't heard anything directly. We need you to reach out, and we need a way to communicate with you so we can move forward. But first, we have to know that you have our mom. We want to talk to you, and we are waiting for contact.
And Vinny, during a recent press conference, I asked the FBI special agent in charge, if a family chooses or wants to cooperate with a possible kidnapper or kidnappers, what are the next steps to take? Here's what the FBI special agent in charge said.
We have an expertise when it comes to kidnappings, and when families want advice, consultation, expertise, we will provide that. But the ultimate decisions on what they say and how they put that out rests with the family itself.
Now, Vinny, during that same press conference, the FBI also announced a $50,000 reward for anybody with information that may lead to an arrest in this case.
All right, thanks so much, Cody. Let's get to the next question in our investigation. It's about that note. Is this ransom note legitimate? Remember, it's sent to Scripps News Group. It is sent to another local news outlet. It is sent apparently to TMZ as well, not sent to the family. Joining me, retired FBI Special Agent, Professor of Practice at the University of New Haven, Kenneth Gray, and criminologist and investigative profiler, Dr. Casey Jordan. Thank you both. Kenneth Gray, I just want to go to you first on this FBI expertise, okay? Is part of that expertise trying to figure out if this is legitimate? And if so, how do they do it? And do you think because at this point they're not discounting it, that it may very well be legit?
Sure. So the family is asking for a sign of life to show that Nancy Guthrie is still alive. But as far as communication goes here, so far all we've seen is the one communication going to the 3 news agencies. And then they broadcast their response back. But that does not set up a two-way communication. They really need to have some way to be able to get directly in contact with the kidnappers to be able to exchange the money and bitcoins for the location of their mother after they provide sign of life proof that she is still alive. This could be legitimate, but the only thing they're hanging their hat on to make this legitimate is information in there that there was a damaged floodlight on her property, that she left behind her Apple Watch, and also something to do with the dollar amount. They didn't put out the details of the communication itself, except for in generalities and these 3 pieces of information.
All right, Dr. Casey Jordan, what are your thoughts here in taking a look at everything? Does it sound like this ransom note is legit and this is, whoever's behind the note is behind the abduction, or should we be looking at a wider scope here?
I agree with everything Kenneth said. I mean, the bottom line is that this is a very malleable, ongoing situation. So at first we think it's legit because there are some things that they mention in there that maybe kidnappers would specifically know, but they're not ultra specific. And you look for that. And it's until we get proof of life. Can they describe the birthmark on the back of her neck? Can they inscribe the inscription on the inside of her ring? Something like that. I'm just making this up, but something so micro specific that you know that they have her in front of them. And we haven't received anything like that. Now, as time goes on and we have these appeals from Savannah last night and from her brother again today, and we receive no further communication, that may suggest, and nobody wants to really go there, that the kidnappers don't have anything to negotiate with at this point. Let's put it that way. And that might change everything. If they can't provide proof of life and they don't know what to do next, they just may ride off into the sunset and we never hear from them again and get no closure on this case. At this point, so in other words, the ransom demand could be legit, but things could have gone haywire. Alternatively, it's legit and they are in the process of figuring out a communication channel. They may have been bright enough to be able to, abduct her without a trace, but not bright enough to figure out how they're going to communicate the details of getting that crypto.
Yeah, that to me, that's I don't understand in 2026 how you could expect to do that unless you are a super master of, of this digital world that we live in. Kenneth, do you think is it a possibility that ransom could be paid and she could be returned and these people could get away with it, right? That they would be comfortable enough to hand her back, get the money, and be done?
That's a possibility. I mean, that's always a possibility. But there are also other possibilities such that they don't have her and they're trying to just take advantage of the situation with information that they have and hoping to cash in on this situation. Another possibility is that she is no longer alive and that they are trying to cash in on the situation. Or this may be a false flag, totally a false flag to begin with, and that they never had her.
Are you surprised, Casey, that we're here now? This is 5 days later, and we're still not. It's not precise if this is a kidnapping for ransom or something completely different.
Or was it a vendetta against Savannah from somebody she's never met who obsessed about her or glommed onto her? Or she said something 15 years ago on the Today Show that they found offensive, and seeing her in tears last night was all the satisfaction they wanted. We don't know, but we are moving away from any notion that this is just an unhinged, random home invasion who just got into the house and then decided to take an 84-year-old lady. The police have been really cagey on whether it's targeted or not. I think that they absolutely believe it's targeted at this point. But yeah, 5 days in, that's not good. That's not good at all. And I don't think that there have been many missteps per se, but everyone's like, well, why did it take a while for them to contact, Scripps and all the news agencies? For all we know, they did try to contact the family, but it didn't get through to them. All right. How many hundreds of thousands of tips have come in that were not taken seriously? So what happens next will determine. But I'd say if we go a few more days past the so-called Monday deadline, we knew we had some kind of deadline today at 5 o'clock. We don't know what that meant. But after Monday, if we don't hear from them at all, that's not a good sign. It either proves that it was always a hoax or that whoever sent that doesn't have her alive anymore and can't continue with negotiations.
Yeah. Is there any way, Kenneth, communications were sent to the media, so are they trying to track that down, trying to track down the source of that? Is that going to be difficult for the FBI to do?
I'm sure they're trying to do that at this point, tracking down every electronic communication channel possible to see whether or not they can find who originated that. But, if you go up on the dark web, you can set up an anonymous email account and send it through there, and that's very hard to track. And so, I'm sure that channel is being pursued, but I'd like to point out that it's difficult to hold a person for any length of time, especially if they're either a child or an elderly person with health issues. And so every day that goes by makes it harder and harder for them to operate. And so I think that we have another deadline here that is being approached, just simply with the difficulty in keeping her in this situation.
Absolutely. All right. Our guests are staying with us. Coming up next, what was happening at the house during those 41 minutes?
We will not rest. Your children will not rest.
Coming soon to Court TV.
The Microsoft executive gunned down. Now his ex and her new husband are charged with his murder.
Mountains of evidence. 17-year-old accused of murdering her mother and her stepfather. A social media sensation, now a suspected killer.
Why do you have something against me?
Suzanne Morphew vanished without a trace.
Her husband, Barry, has been charged with her murder.
The high-stakes trials you don't want to miss. Coming soon, only on Court TV.
Mommy, if you are hearing this, you are a strong woman. You are God's precious daughter, Nancy. We believe and know that even in this valley, He's with you.
Powerful words from Savannah Guthrie. As that family waits and waits, can't imagine the absolute angst and torture that family is going through. And then their mom, what is she going through here on day 5? Let's get back to Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas, live at the Pima County Sheriff Department headquarters. All right, Cody, what do we know about what time in this timeline that Nancy Guthrie was abducted?
Well, yeah, Vinny, the sheriff went into detail in explaining what they know about the timeline up to this point, from the last time Nancy Guthrie was seen alive by her family to when she was reported missing to the authorities. And they also explained that they believe Nancy Guthrie was home alone the night that this all went down. Now, Vinny, also, they described this 41-minute period of time during which she was seemingly abducted. And this period of time, it starts with her doorbell camera getting disconnected, and it ends with her pacemaker app disconnecting from her phone. And then there's a little twist in the middle of all of that as well. Vinny, take a listen to this.
This is a timeline that we have been able to develop with some of the things that we've had processed. Various pieces of electronics that we've gathered. Sunday morning, early morning at 1:47 a.m., the doorbell camera disconnects. At 2:12 a.m., software detects a person on a camera, but there's no video available. They had no subscription, and therefore it would rewrite itself. It just kind of loops, right, and covers up. That's what our analysis teams have told us. We're not done with that. We'll do all we can, but that's what it says. So that detects a person on camera. Could that be an animal? I imagine that's possible. We don't know that. We just have no video, but we're not giving up on that. 2:28, Nancy's pacemaker app shows that it was a disconnect from the phone.
When you say the doorbell camera was disconnected, do you believe that camera was taken?
We do not have it in our possession. We've not located it.
So again, Vinny, they don't have any actual video footage of a person on that property, but they are investigating that doorbell camera footage, whatever they can extract from the doorbell camera. Now, Vinny, when they say her pacemaker app disconnected from her phone, we know that her phone was left at the house. Police are in possession of that phone, but that could also suggest that in that 41-minute period of time there, that could suggest she was being abducted toward the end of that window of time.
Absolutely. You know, if the connection is probably like my glucometer. It does the same thing. If you're out of a certain range with your phone, it's going to disconnect. Cody Thomas, great work tonight. Thanks so much. Brings us to the final question in our investigation this hour, which is, what was happening at the house during those 41 minutes? Still with me, retired FBI Special Agent Kenneth Gray and criminologist and investigative profiler Dr. Casey Jordan. Dr. Casey Jordan, 41 minutes. What's going on at that house?
Well, the family indicated when they got there on Sunday morning that they could tell something bad had happened. The place was very disheveled. And then, of course, there was signs of a forced entry. So in that amount of time, it would have been probably just calming her down, because as your previous guests have pointed out, you know, taking elderly people and young children is a huge liability. You don't want screaming. You don't want to have to carry them. You want them to walk as far as they can on their own. And the bottom line is, it was probably a lot of false reassurances. Everything is going to be fine. But, you know, what bothers me the most is that in those 40 minutes, they could have been trying to figure out how to take her with that pacemaker, which I'm sure if she was conscious, she would have alerted them about. They want her to have the pacemaker and the Apple Watch together, but taking the Apple Watch means that there will be a locator on there. I mean, it's going to be almost impossible unless you know how to turn that off. And they made a decision, I think, to leave the Apple Watch behind. And that could have caused, you know, health-related issues down the road that they had not anticipated. Did they take any medication with them? Did they allow her to get dressed? Were they concerned for her safety? I think that there are always so many things they don't anticipate, the so-called X factor, things that they think the best laid plan, and then things go awry. I think something was going awry in those 40 minutes. It was not a quick in and out. And that is perhaps why we are not hearing from them now.
Kenneth Gray, what are your thoughts about those 41 minutes?
Well, the person or persons who did this may be familiar with the property, may be familiar with the outside of the building, but they may not be familiar with the inside of the building. They may not know whether there are alarms inside the building. They may not know whether someone else is staying there in addition to Nancy. And so they may be slowly creeping through the building, through her house, trying to determine if there are alarms, trying to determine if anyone else is in the house. And then they wake her up and have to get her out of the house. She may not have been cooperative with them. There's blood on the there that you just see in that scene at the door. We don't know if there's blood on the inside of the house or not. She may not have been cooperative with them, and consequently, it may have taken time to get her up, get her dressed, get her out of the house, and get anything they needed to bring with her, if they brought anything with her, to get her out of there. It takes time. It's not like grabbing up a kid and running out the door. This would take time to do so, and especially doing so if you're not really familiar with the property, if you're not really familiar with the inside of that house.
Kenneth Gray and Dr. Casey Jordan, so great to have your expertise. I hope you'll come back as we continue to cover this story. This is a brutal situation for Nancy's family. You know, in the spotlight with their mom missing, while the nation wonders who did it and why did they do it. And everyone is hoping for Nancy's return, but understanding as each day passes, it becomes less and less likely. At this point, all they can hope, and we can hope for, is that the kidnappers come to their senses, end this torture, and let Nancy return home.
What the President of the United States just said
on Air Force One this evening that just kind of gave me whiplash, because I thought, oh my God, he's had a report of some actual movement in this case. Here's the president speaking to reporters. Take a look.
We have some things I think that will maybe come out reasonably soon from DOJ or FBI or whoever that could be suspect. Yeah, could be definitive. A lot's taken place in the last couple of hours. A lot of things have happened with regard to that horrible situation the last couple of hours.
I think that we will maybe come out reasonably soon. FBI, DOJ could be definitive. A lot has taken place in the last couple of hours. And all of this at a time when there's this frenetic activity out in front of Nancy Guthrie's home, as well as a new ransom. I'm not going to say ransom because they're not calling it a ransom note, but a new communications note sent to, again, a TV station. And the way this is sent makes a lot more sense now, because we all thought they were being emailed, and why were they being emailed to certain people and who? Turns out, no, tip line, webmail, like just through the website. You know, when you set up a customer service comment and they say, put your address here and put your comment here and you know, send in your comments. That is how this latest communication came in. I'll explain all of that in a moment. It's KOLD TV in Tucson, but they're not calling it a ransom note. They're saying it's more like a message. And I wouldn't say it's helpful. They're not saying everything about it, trust me, but let me just say this. Not helping to further communications. But back to the developments tonight. Agents are back in two locations. Nancy Guthrie's home, which is the crime scene, 4 miles down the road. Annie Guthrie's home, Nancy Guthrie's daughter, Savannah Guthrie's sister. So it's midnight Eastern right now and 10 o'clock-ish in Tucson, and agents showed up at Annie Guthrie's home, 3 of them, according to Brian Enton, who's there watching. He's got eyes on. And they showed up in the cover of darkness and then left. I don't know what to make of that. So much that's happening has been unusual in this case, including some of the comments from law enforcement all throughout this. Lots of backtracking, lots of sort of confusing messaging, not the least of which is who dropped Nancy Guthrie off. The sheriff has said 3 different things and then walked it all back saying, we're just going to go with family. Now we really don't even know who the last person or people was, to see Nancy Guthrie. I found that odd. I found a lot of the wording of the press conference yesterday odd. I found it odd that a lot of the press didn't pick up on the fact that the sheriff said the car has been towed per a warrant and it's being processed. I believe I reported on Tuesday, Annie Guthrie's car was towed and is in evidence. And then tonight, lest there be any confusion on what car was towed, another car was towed. Nancy Guthrie's car was towed out of her garage at the crime scene at Nancy Guthrie's home. So the reference to a car already having been towed, Nancy's, no, that happened tonight. That would have been Annie's car. At least that's the way I see it when he says, as for the car being towed, that would have been Annie's car. Being processed as per a warrant, right? To get a warrant, you got to have probable cause. You got to go before a magistrate usually or a judge and get get the warrant okayed. Megyn Kelly, who you're going to hear from in a bit, she and her team reached out to get the warrant and it was sealed. So don't hold your breath. They're not opening that information up, but I would like to know what the probable cause was to tow that car that the sheriff confirmed yesterday had already happened, that I reported on Tuesday of this week, 4 days ago. So let's see what else. A lot happened today. Again, Nancy's car has been towed from her garage. A Circle K representative has told the media that authorities have come and asked for video to check it against a vehicle that they are looking for. And the Circle K executive said that they complied and gave the video that law enforcement was looking for. Fox had some really, really interesting video today. They videotaped agents on top of Nancy Guthrie's roof. And you could see these agents kind of like working a camera until they got it off its mount, removing it from like the gutter area of the roof line. And News Nation also had, drone video showing agents clambering up on the roof with a ladder that they had affixed to the backside of Nancy Guthrie's home, where the pool area and the garden is. That's also the same area where Fox zeroed in on smashed floodlights that are sort of over the back door area, kind of inside the garage into the back door area, the back part of the backyard. And so those floodlights look very smashed to me. The brick even looks damaged if you zero in, but those floodlights are like hanging off of their wires. So whomever may have been responsible for this may have been the parties that did that to the floodlights. But I was fascinated to see that way up high on the roof line, these agents who were up on the roof were able to actually physically, get a camera off its mount and put it down beside them on the roof. And what's important to note here is the sheriff had said Nancy Guthrie did not have a subscription service for her Nest system. And I say Nest because my source called these Nest cameras and said they'd been smashed. And the problem with not having a subscription is you don't have the archival video, but you have the alerts. You know when the alerts happen. And if you're lucky enough to catch them live, you can see what's going on live, but the minute it's over, you don't get the history. You can't go back and look at the video. So the company that they've been working with to try to get this forensic historical data can only sort of tell them, well, there was an alert at this time, and there was an alert at that time. And it's basically motion detected at your back door or motion detected. But the sheriff said there was no way to tell where the motion was detected, which camera. It just said the system detected motion. So the cameras that this Fox News video was able to see today being dismounted, from the gutter area, the top of the roof line, I don't know whether one of those might have been the cameras that alerted, But the sheriff said the cameras, plural, and this was important because my source said that they were smashed. And the wording that the sheriff used was smashed. I don't know where he got that. I'm not confirming that. We don't have them. They're gone. That was fascinating to me. Clearly, at least one of them that the Fox News cameras caught today, that was not gone. They got it today, days after the processing of the scene. So some other things that happened today, really, really important. Another note. Let's talk about this other note that came into KOLD. And I don't know. Every time I hear something about these notes, I think more and more these are just, the worst of the worst, scamming parasites somewhere from overseas who know how to work, an encrypted IP address and have their ability to cloak their software and ask for Bitcoin. But this was a weird message today because it wasn't a ransom letter. They're not calling it that. And it wasn't a demand, so to speak. It was strange. And KOLD's news director spoke at length about what it was. It was not proof of life. She was clear about that. When Elizabeth Vargas on News Nation asked, did it talk about Nancy Guthrie's condition? The news director of KOLD said, I can't go into that. That was interesting. But then the news director spoke about how that new message came in. It was not an email. This is this weird web-based customer tip line, like put in your name, address, birth date, what's your comment, ma'am or sir. That's how it came in. Not very sophisticated, if you ask me. Certainly not somebody who's planning for a multi-million-dollar kidnapping, hit job. Doesn't seem like it to me anyway, and I'm not the only one who says that. But yeah, it came in on a web form. And when name, email, and birth date were filled out, news director said name wasn't even on it. It was just a smattering of words. She wouldn't get more clear than that. Did not give a way to communicate. Once again, this was a communication that was not a communication, so to speak. Didn't give a way for the Guthrie family to ask for proof of life, to ask about steps afterwards, like, how do we get our mother back? Once again, amateur hour, it seems. And when I say that, I want you to hear from Dan O'Shea. Dan O'Shea is a former hostage negotiator. He's got a few miles on him in this business, and he may be the smartest voice that I have heard so far in these last 5 days of this very confusing, complex, mysterious, and tragic saga. Dan O'Shea talks about the kidnap business because it's what he works in for a living, right? He's the negotiator. He said, kidnap for ransom is a business. They're not idiots. They want their money. They do this. They have a protocol. They have a system. They're typically pretty sophisticated, kidnap for ransom. They don't typically beat the shit out of their victims and then ask for money without any other communication. They just don't operate in this way. They operate in a way where they can get their money. I want you to hear from Dan O'Shea because I think he says it far more eloquently than I do.
What do you make of these latest developments that in the first message from these purported kidnappers, they had said, this is our demand, no more communication. Then we have the family coming out twice with videos pleading for proof of life and a way to communicate. And now we have, it looks like, according to the news director of the station that received 2 messages, it looks like they're both sent from the same person. They are communicating again. So they've already changed at least one condition.
Yeah, the reality is they have not provided proof of life. Again, this was stated in their previous show on News Nation by one of the, I think, FBI law enforcement personnel. This isn't like any case I've ever seen, and I've been tracking cases now for 20 plus years. My 2 years in Iraq, 04 to 06, but I've almost got a PhD in this, and I've never come across this case with, the demands sent to TMZ, sent to local news media. They need to go directly to the family. They're asking for millions of dollars on Bitcoin, which will be untraceable if that money's sent. And they're not acting in good faith. And I frankly think this group is going after the news media. They've created this 24/7 news cycle, and I think this exposure may be part of it. So you have to look at, the motives. Why would you go after, Savannah Guthrie is a very high-profile figure, but, she's not controversial. Why would they go after her mother, who's, got a health condition? She's 84. But my bigger concern is the fact that they use violence at the scene.
Yes, because we know that Nancy's blood was found on the front stoop. She was hurt at some point while she was abducted.
Right. So from the get-go, the family cannot trust that what they're dealing with an honest broker from day one. Kidnapping is a business. Kidnap for ransom is a business, and people need to play by the rules. This group or this individual is not playing by the rules. Therefore, the family and the others will be hesitant to move forward because there are no good faith negotiations in this case.
Yeah. Listen, the Guthrie family has a very, very difficult decision, an excruciating decision to make in the next hours and days. Do they pay this ransom without proof of life, because the second message does not contain proof of life, or do they risk something happening to their mother and having to live with the fact that they gave up perhaps the chance to save her? If you were advising this family, because we know the FBI is working closely with the Guthries, what would you tell them? What do you think the FBI is advising them?
Well, you never pay without proof of life. Bottom line, especially not millions of dollars. The fact that they showed violence from the get-go, they have a propensity to violence. There's no guarantee. I'm just saying it's a very tough decision. I can't imagine what the Guthries are going through at this stage, but you cannot pay something without a proof of life. And this clock is ticking. Monday's going to be here very soon, but they have to stay strong because, and there's no guarantee that these email messages are even coming from people who have her, and if they do, there's no guarantee that that they're going to make a deal to bring home her mother safely. So
take that for what you will. I think a lot of people are weighing in on their feelings about this whole ransom story being ancillary to the actual crime itself. These are just parasites trying to benefit off of this horrible circumstance, this horrible crime that's been committed against the Guthrie family. maybe we should expect more of this in the future in the AI world that we're living in right now. The ability for scammers overseas to take Americans at will, and they have no compunction, wiping out senior citizens of everything they have. They have absolutely no compunction to do so. So why should they care otherwise? This may be part of our new normal. So as we process the feelings about the kidnap and the ransom notes, and whether they're just red herrings, ruses, whatever they are, ancillary problems. One is already being prosecuted in California, right? One guy's already been arrested for inserting himself allegedly into this and demanding, ransom money. We'll see how that plays out. I don't hold out a lot of hope for a jury liking this guy if he ever gets to a jury. Today, more unusual behavior out in front of Nancy Guthrie's house. We've been to this rodeo a few times now, right? Monday, the crime scene is released after 30-ish hours. Mea culpa has already been given by the sheriff. He said, look, Monday morning, quarterback me. I'll take the heat. Maybe we shouldn't have done that. Maybe we should have brought in the feds earlier. Give the guy grace. This is a lot. This is a lot for this sheriff. This is a lot for this department. This is a lot for this community. They don't see a lot of high crime, and the world stage just descended upon him in real time. But he was gracious enough to say, I'll take the heat for that. And then suddenly crime tape went up again midweek, but only for 2 hours. Brian Enton watched the whole thing. He was right there, reporting it live on News Nation. And then the crime scene tape went down again. And then again today, all the media, and Brian says there's 300 media out in front down that road, all trained on Nancy Guthrie's home and whatever activity might be there. Suddenly, the agents are pushing them all the way. Off you go, everybody down the road. We are clearing this road. They shut down an entire spate of road out in front of Nancy Guthrie's home and moved all the press down the way, right? All of that happened right at the same time, roughly, that news of the ransom message, rather, I should call it a new message adjacent to the ransom notes that came out before. All coming at the same time. So lots of analysts are speculating maybe there's something in the note and the agents are coming in. And they brought in, an FBI response unit. Big vehicle pulling into the front of Nancy Guthrie's home. And people, agents are going in and out of the house at this point. So it was a very busy, busy moment in the day. At the same time, there was an older couple that looked like they might have been neighbors, dressed in civvies, right? A woman and a man, and they are in the back area. I'll say yard, but the rough behind Nancy's beautiful manicured backyard and pool area. They're kind of among the cacti and the rough terrain, and they're standing with about 3 different agents, maybe 4, but you can see them kind of pointing things out. These civilians, maybe neighbors, with these agents who are in uniform, looking in the back area. And there's been a lot of this, right? There's been sporadic looking. There's been helicopters flying above in the last several days. And I keep coming back to Monday. Not even 30-ish hours after the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie, they called off the search. Called it off. No need to search here, folks. Nothing to see here. And we won't be reigniting the search unless, things warrant. Well, we've had a few searches since, yeah. But why did they call off the search so quickly on Monday? I still go back to that. And I'm wondering, what did you know? Because an 84-year-old woman is missing. How could you not be searching everywhere for days? Typically, when someone goes missing, searches go on for days. And eventually they start pulling back. And it's very, very disheartening for the family. But this